Hello, I'm Gareth.
And I'm Shane, and welcome to Building Business Resilience.
This is a podcast from Sanctuary Financial Planning, which helps growth business owners and social media influencers achieve financial independence.
We're two passionate financial planners on a mission to seek out new ideas, tips and tricks to help you take control of your finances and run better businesses.
We delve into the true goals and aspirations of our guests in order to provide you with some real value and positivity.
Nothing outrageous, clear, simple, solid financial solutions. We also have a YouTube series to accompany this, and details will be at the end of the show. So let's move on to our guest.
Okay, welcome one and all. It's episode 7 of the Building Business Resilience Show. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to Gwen Goddard of Mental Health First Aid Wales. We've actually changed the order this week. This episode is one that we've been looking forward to releasing. And as it's the week of the 18th of May, 2020, it's actually Mental Health Awareness Week. So this one is very fitting. A bit about the organisation. Mental Health First Aid Wales is a subsidiary of Mind, which is a registered charity in Wales. The aim of both organisations is to provide services and support and well-being of individual communities across Wales. They say training is essential to equip people with tools, understanding and confidence to deal with all kinds of mental ill health and well-being issues. Given the current climate in the UK surrounding mental health, the likelihood of encountering issues both personally and professionally is almost guaranteed. Mental health first aid is for everyone. Mental health problems are extremely common, with 1 in 4 people experiencing some kind of mental health issue throughout their lives. So, without much further ado, let's get started. So, hi Gwen, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I'll be ready to probably down tools after this, I think, for the weekend, which the weekend seemed to just be like any other day, really.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to distinguish between days, months, hours, nights, anything.
Yeah, I'm very conscious of checking what day and date it is every day, because you do get into that whole what day are we on at the moment, you know.
We need to know what day bin day is. Bin day is still the same day, so we need to know.
Yeah,
Apart from when it's a bank holiday and then it throws everybody. But then you look out at your next door neighbour who has nailed it and has looked on the website for the local council and has it out in the correct day.
Absolutely.
Because every street has one of those neighbours.
Yeah, we have to do that. But Gwen, do you want to introduce yourself and where you're from and about the charity?
Sure. So I'm Gwen Goddard. I'm the training lead for Mental Health First Aid in Wales. So we're not a charity, we're an organisation, but our profits go towards Torfaen and Blaen y Gwent Mine. So that's the way that kind of works. So it's an organisation. We've got the licence for mental health first aid in Wales. So we develop the courses and we deliver it. We train people up to deliver it as well.
So I guess those courses have changed recently then, or are changing?
Oh, we have had to adapt. Yes, absolutely. So, as soon as lockdown started, really, I can remember the first day when I thought, wow, this is really going to affect us. I was delivering training in Cardiff. We turned up for day 2 of the training and we got turned away, and I thought, okay.
Wow.
And I can remember driving back up the M4 thinking, right, what's going to happen now? So we've, in fairness, we've just got straight on it, and we are on the e-learning. We are developing an interactive course, a modular course, so people can sit down at their leisure, do module 1, do module 2 the next day, or the day after, or whatever. And we're working our way through that now. We're hoping to launch in June. We'll also have a short awareness course as well that we can put on there.
How did that, Gwen, affect? Like every company or organisation, everyone probably has a 12-month business plan and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, that kind of gets thrown out the water, because a lot of companies, organisations that didn't use Zoom or intended to, let's say, implement them in 6-12 months' time because they were afraid, had to do it overnight. Were you guys kind of the same in having to bring this digital training in, or was that always in the pipeline, or did you have to rush it through?
I'll tell you now, Shane, we were actually preparing for a massive rebrand when we got locked down. Complete rebrand of everything. We'd worked with an organisation for months before, and we put that on hold. Wow. And then we suddenly thought, why are we stopping? Like, if anybody needs to power ahead, people need mental health support now. We need to keep going with it.
Yeah.
So we did. We relaunched back in April. We got whole new branding, and then it cost a lot to transfer our courses to e-learning, and it would take a lot of explaining to people how to do it safely. So we figured the only way to do it would be for us to do it ourselves. So I have very quickly learned how to use a program to develop e-learning myself. My colleague has done so as well. So we are developing, interactive things. I've never used a program like that before in my life. So it's good fun. I'm learning new skills, which is good.
It's adaptation. The whole series of podcasts that we've done so far, the string that's gone through all of them has been twofold: adaptation and being able to change on a regular basis to the environment and to mental health. So this is one of the it sounds wrong, one of the ones I've been looking forward to most, because I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of information from this.
Value.
It's value. It is massive at the moment. As much as it was an issue prior to all of this, it's an even bigger issue now, and it'll be an even bigger issue going forward once we come out of lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, well, from my own kind of experience of everything that's going on, I think it's probably the least talked about thing by the government, if anything, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what we've noticed, is that there's a lot of emphasis on how to keep yourself safe physically. And there's kind of independent organisations are doing things, like we've done things. I wrote an article for the BBC, and, we've done like a couple of mini videos before we started doing the e-learning, try and help people to understand, what could help them through this issue, because there's so many things. I mean, there could be people suffering with chronic illnesses who are not able to go out, so they are in isolation. There could be bereavements. There could be anxieties and fear. People are stuck in their house, so it could exacerbate depression. None of these things are currently being addressed very much. There is that Every Mind Matters program, but that kind of covers mostly England. We've kind of set up our own campaign for MHFA Wales, which we're trying to get some funding for as well, to get counselling to like key workers and training to key worker managers and stuff. So, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more in a little while as well.
So how can people look after themselves or look after their mental health while in lockdown? Is there any specific kind of quick points you can give out to people that if they're listening to this now, they can kind of associate with it, they can do?
Yeah, I don't even think I could probably talk about this for probably 6 hours, so you might have to stop me. This is my job. So there's lots of things that we need to consider. And it's interesting that we've been talking about, being adaptable and stuff. Adapting to change is actually a really difficult thing for humans to do, because by nature, we are habitual creatures. We like things the way that we usually have them. So the ability to adapt quickly is actually really going to be important during this process and through the process that we've already been through. And it's interesting because I actually think this is a really good exercise for us all as a society to learn that skill, to learn how to be adaptable, But in terms of managing, I suppose I would have to go back to the 5 ways of well-being, the same as anybody I'm sure you'd speak to around mental health would talk about. So we'll start with sleep, for example. And I'll start with sleep because I watched a really interesting TED Talks. It came up on my LinkedIn, I think, yesterday. And there's a guy called Matt Walker who gives a really good TED Talks about the importance of sleep and what it does. Not just the 8 hours thing, because they did a study. He was talking on there and he said that they did a study where they had a group of people sleep for 6 hours to look at the impact that it had on them. It actually changed their genes. It had an impact on their very DNA. So what they noticed was the genes that impact on things like tumor growth and memory storage and all those types of things, they were massively, massively increased. And it affects the hippocampus as well. So sleep deprivation affects the way that we store memory. So if you think of it like a computer, I don't know if you ever had the issue on your phone where you've got too many photos.
Yeah.
And it'll kind of say you need to delete some photos to make some space. What sleep essentially does is expand that space. Rather than delete photos, it allows more room for photos to be stored. So it really can massively affect the memory. And they found a link between sleep deprivation and Alzheimer's later on. So what he's saying basically is that sleep isn't a luxury. It's kind of a silent sleep loss epidemic that's happening across the world. So it's really important that you get into a routine of sleep. and that you maintain that, which not a lot of people want to do. We kind of want to stay up a bit more, or we used to anyway, when days were normal days.
Yeah.
When you say sleep routine, is that even if you're going to bed at 11 o'clock at night, go to bed at 11 o'clock every night? Don't go at 9 one night, 1 the next night, half 10. It's the routine of this, almost a set time and stuff like that.
Yeah, because your body gets used to it. So we're all walking bags of hormones, and your body gets used to the time of day that you get up will trigger different hormones. So like leptin, which controls hunger, it will tell you when you are hungry throughout the day. And then you've got melatonin, which tells you when you're tired, and it increases and it makes you feel tired. Your body will regulate your hormones throughout the day then to tell you when you need to eat and when you need to sleep. If we are out of whack with that, it can massively affect our mood. It can, induce anxiety. It can induce depression. In a very, very big way, and it can exacerbate any pre-existing conditions. You can already see that with seasonal affective disorder that can affect some people in the wintertime when it's getting darker earlier and stuff. So it's really important that sleep routine is maintained, and it's, around the same time every night.
We had a guy on by the name of Tristan Bevan with some strength and conditioning some weeks ago, and we were asking him, tips to stay healthy in lockdown, and the normal things of stop drinking coffee, drink more water. But one of the things was sleep as well. And outside of the podcast, I know Tristan, and he showed me some study, and I think it's a guy who is in America, maybe an Irish guy by the name of Fergus Connolly, who works with sports people, I think, over there. And you may know something like this. Tristan just touched on it briefly with me, where if you sleep at night, I'm going to say liquid, this is the very simplistic understanding of it for me, goes into your brain and washes out your brain, and then sets you up again the next day. But if you don't get enough sleep, that liquid, I can't think of the name of it, doesn't sort your brain out.
So it's basically cleaning. It's almost like a build-up of proteins in the brain. So in order for your brain to fire properly, it needs to have a bit of a wash, basically, every night. And that's what sleep does. And, of course, the different stages of sleep are really important. That deep sleep stage, we all go through sleep cycles that take about an hour and a half. If you're not getting enough of the deep sleep and you're not getting the quality of deep sleep, that can massively affect your mood and your mental health then.
I think you get that like kind of type of sleep pattern when you with the kids at the moment, like with our little baby now. Some nights I don't get any, I guess, solid sleep, and I can totally feel the difference in how I feel.
Yeah.
And my ability to concentrate and actually function. And I know Shane experiences this a lot. And that he could talk about 8 hours about that as well. I kind of get that, and I can imagine. There's lots of studies about long-term sleep deprivation and things like that, isn't there? The effects that has on you. It's
been used as a form of torture. It can induce like psychosis. People can see things if it's like that extreme. So yeah, it's really, really important. It really massively affects our function, our ability to concentrate. Like you were saying, in terms of not just memory storage, but that part of the brain here that manages like higher reasoning and decision making and stuff like that. It massively affects it. So if you're trying to work and you've got to make snappy decisions, you're not going to be able to function properly.
Yeah. And I do notice that if I've gone through a bit of a bad patch of that sleep, that my ability to make a simple decision sometimes is quite hard.
Have you noticed, like, after a day of work and when it's been like, when you've had to concentrate quite a lot and you go home and somebody says, what do you want to eat or what do you want to watch? And you go, oh, I don't know, just chuck it. I can't think, just chuck anything on, It's exhaustion, it's tiredness, it's your brain going, no, I don't know, need a break.
Is this time, and we'll touch on, how to spot people suffering and stuff like that later, but is it actually a nice thing, this lockdown? And I mean that in the way of, in the past, people would not go out and walk around the local area because unless they had a dog, there was no need to go out walking because everything else in life consumed them. Whereas now, if you aren't able to do anything, the idea of going out for a 15, 20-minute walk around your local area is actually quite nice. You're meeting people, you're saying hello to people, you're noticing things that you didn't notice before, such as birds singing in the air. So it's almost re-energizing your brain in a way because you're getting rid of all of the other noise.
I think it goes deeper than that. I think what you're touching on there, Shane, is, again, that adaptability that we're doing as humans, but the earth is doing it as well. It's not just us. Everything is kind of taking a breath at the moment. And that's that's kind of focusing on the positive side of this. I mean, if we focused on the negative, we'd be like, well, I can't see my friends. I can't go to the pub. I want to go and sit in a beer garden. I've got things I need to go and work. There's no cash flow in work. Everybody's worried about job security. If we're focusing on the negative, we're doing that. But actually, we can do, as you were saying, Shane, and we can say, wow, I get an hour a day where I can go out. I'm going to actually go out. I'm going to go for a walk instead of driving to the shop. You know, I'm going to say hello to people. I'm going to go and sit in my garden. I don't have to commute to work now. So I've got an extra hour a day that I can spend for myself. I can focus on my self-care a little bit more. I can put things in order, you know. When you're taking breaks around the house, it's a lot easier to just give things a quick clean and stuff, I've noticed. I've noticed that cleaning is really, really good at the moment. You know, it's not something I normally do, but I'm here a lot, so I'm keeping my space. I want to keep my space a lot tidier, you know?
I think that's it. I think it's allowed a lot of people to kind of concentrate on some other things. Like, to be honest, I think I'm so absorbed in work sometimes at the moment during this lockdown that I don't think I've done it. Half the things most people have done, like paint the fence and stuff like that, which is not a bad thing. But yeah. So number one was sleep. Well, what's number two, Gwen?
Eating. So the temptation is to pile in the snacks and the junk food because we're all at home and we can raid the cupboards and it's really easy. Don't do it. Again, it's a hormonal thing. I can remember at the start of lockdown, you know, we got a pile of pizzas in and we got some shortbread and dairy milk, which is still my weakness. I will put that out there. But again, people underestimate the impact that food has on mood. So I'll give you an example. If you were to be given, say you were suffering with depression or anxiety and you were to be given medication, what do you do with that medication?
Take it when you're told.
You eat it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So you're actually like ingesting something. But for some reason, it's a hard jump for people to believe that the other things that they're eating and consuming is also affecting their mood. So things like sugar has a massive impact. It has a similar effect of like a stimulant or like cocaine. And of course, lots of foods at the moment are chock full of sugar, especially, you know, fast food and processed foods, white breads and stuff like that. You've got to be really careful because you sugar spike and then you crash. And that's when you get tired, you get moody, you get anxious, and it doesn't fill you up as much either. So then you're eating more and you're getting hungry maybe sometimes as well.
Yeah, I get that.
So it's about making, you know, good food choices as well. I'm not saying everybody needs to go on a diet. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying maximize on the good things. So if you fancy, you know, like a lasagna or whatever, or like something really fat and greasy or a pizza or something, have your pizza, just make sure that the rest of the day you have a pile of veggies as well, or, you know, have an apple, have some oranges throughout the day as your snacks. Maximize on the good stuff or add more good stuff rather than taking away bad stuff, because we also need to consider that this is a really difficult time. I had tried to pack in smoking before this had happened. I've got my vape here. So I was just vaping. I was doing really well. And then lockdown happened and my friend that I work with, sorry, not lockdown, it was that day I told you about when we got sent home from training, and we were kind of like, shall we go halves on a pack of cigarettes? And, you know, if it's for the sake of your sanity and it's not going to do too much damage, you have to look after yourself as well. You can't just be completely disciplined. But yeah, food, absolutely, really important. So maximize on the fruits and the veggies and like the whole foods rather than the junk food. Make the most of the time that we have in the home now. You know, do bulk cooks and make sure that you're cooking from scratch and stuff like that. It's so easy to do. There's so many recipes out there. It's so easy to do. Yeah,
I think we've just become a bit lazy with stuff like that, haven't we? You know, it's like everything, fast food, fast fashion. We've got it all, haven't we?
I don't think it's laziness, honestly, Gareth. I think it's overwhelmed. We've all been so overwhelmed that you get up in the morning, you have to rush to get ready for work. Yeah. You get in the car, you know that you're going to get stuck in traffic. You get up to work, there's stress in work. You've got to rush food because you don't take time, you don't take your breaks in work. So you're trying to smash something down your neck at lunchtime. Right. And then you go home. And by the time you go home, you just collapse on the sofa. Who wants to stand up and cook for an hour after that? I don't. I know that I suffered so much, you know, when I was working flat out, then when work's a little bit quieter, or like times like now when I actually think and sit and think, I've got time to cook, what am I going to cook? What's going to be good for me, you know?
Everyone has been driving at 150 miles an hour in their life. for the last few years. And that was just normality. That's just the way it is. Everything is get from A to B as quickly as possible. And as you said, it was interesting with the food. Again, one of the previous podcasts, one of the guys went, you are at home for longer, so start cooking from scratch. Use fresh ingredients. You know what's going in. You have more time now, so even if you are working, if you're in an office or a room, you can have something cooking there. So yeah, I totally get that about cooking from scratch and cooking bulk, because then even if it is a fast food hit in the the next day, because you've got limited time due to work, it's not fast food, and it is fast food in all but name, because it's actually your healthy food that you're just reheating or whatever.
That's exactly what I'd be doing. I tell you now, I spent 3 hours. I don't advise this. I made a lasagna from scratch a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely huge one. It took me 3 hours to do. But myself and my partner had food for about 3 days after that. And I sent some to my mum and my dad and my brother as well. Yeah. So, if you've got the time to do it, just put it together, chuck it in the freezer, and you've got it ready, and it's good food. It's good for you. It's not just like junk food that they've packed full of sugar and whatever saturated fats they could find.
That's one of the tips in lockdown, is it then cook a massive amount of stuff to reuse over the next couple of days?
Absolutely. Cook from scratch. Have a look online. There's an absolute infinite amount of recipes out there.
So we've done sleep, we've done eat, and what's number 3?
I suppose reaching out is really important. Because we are in isolation, it's going to be really important that you stay connected, because obviously we can't go out. My mum is one of the vulnerable people, so I don't know when I'm going to be able to see her next, and we just FaceTime every day. There are some people, however, I'm fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, that I'm in lockdown with my partner. There are some people who are completely in isolation on their own. Another tip as part of this would be to be kind. And a way that we can be kind is by checking on those people. So if you know that there's somebody who is perhaps out of their usual living situation because they've had to go into lockdown, so they wouldn't be on their own, they've moved back with their parents quickly, or, if somebody is actually in lockdown on their own, message them. You say, do you fancy having a glass of wine with me on Friday over FaceTime or whatever? You can do quizzes. There's so many things that you can do together. Look at us now. We've connected. We're talking on Zoom. We're not in the same room, but we're connecting. We're talking, and we're actually helping each other as well, So it's still really important to stay connected with people, even if you just drop them a message saying, hey, man, how are you doing? Everything all right?
You don't want to be spending too much time on Zoom, because then the Zoom fatigue will kick in, isn't it?
Zoom fatigue, FaceTime fatigue, the works. But the good thing about this is, and this is another tip, this is my phone, close it, put it away and leave it. This is what you were talking about earlier, Shane, about, everything being fast. The world has become a world of everything having to be instant. Yeah. We used to live in a world where we sent letters and it would take a while and then you get a response. Even with faxing, it would take a while. We live in instant messenger. We live in the age of Zoom. We live in the age of email. So we are expected as humans to do everything like that. So technology has evolved around us, but humans are staying at the same pace, which is why we're feeling massively overwhelmed by all of this. So yes, we can experience Zoom fatigue. The important thing is that we do things at our own pace. So if you are feeling overwhelmed by your messenger or the news or your Facebook feed, close your phone, put it away and walk away from it and do something else. If you are trying, I do this when I'm in work, so I keep my email open on a separate screen whilst I'm working. Shut it down and check it once every 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because we try and be reactive, we try and be responsive, because we want to get to people as quickly as possible and help them, or, do our jobs as quickly as possible. It's really, really important that we slow down, and it's really, really important that we do things at our own pace. And you can take control. We are in control of it. It sometimes feels like technology is in control of us, but you can close it and you can walk away from it.
That's a major thing you said about the emails, because as a company, we've kind of taken the view we've tried to write down a list of jobs that we have to get done each day. We don't have to tell each other, but we're putting down maybe 8 to 10 jobs, maybe 3 or 4 of them that are tricky or are time consuming, and maybe 4, 5 or 6 that are easy enough to get done. Because what you found is that if you have an email that comes through, straight away you look at that email, you spend 10 or 15 minutes reading it, digesting it, doing some research, sending a reply. There's an hour of the day gone. If there's 3 of them, it's 3 hours of your day. And then all of a sudden, your day finishes and you go, do you know what? I've got nothing done today. So I think exactly as you said, the emails have to be looked at not first thing in the morning, because they can be, get your house in order with doing stuff as we do. Get the jobs done. Set the jobs that are realistic. Don't set, an hour of a task. Set a good working day. But once it's done, it's done. So your day has been successful. And for the 4 of us, and Claire that works with us, there's a sense of achievement, a sense of satisfaction that comes from that. So you've had a good day, rather than the negative side of it going, I've got nothing done today. Because if you haven't planned and ticked it off, the negativity seems to come in. So I totally get the idea of the emails look, on a regular set pattern. Doesn't happen every day, but we do try and instill that with the 5 of us.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, especially with that feeling of satisfaction. I've had a week where I've been trying to respond to emails and my day's been broken up. So I'm in that space where I feel like I'm treading water. I don't feel like I'm making progress, But I haven't stopped working. I just can't see what it is that I've done. So it's really important, like you said, Shane, that you can even set days where you don't check your email and you say, somebody else check it for me because I need to focus on this task today. Yeah. This is what I'm going to do. And then you get to your list, so you can organize your time as a week and then you can section that into days. And as you said, those tick lists are brilliant for the dopamine. Tick, brilliant, I've achieved something. It's that sense of achievement that you get from doing it. So organizing yourself and your work can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And I'm terrible for that, having my emails open. And you get into this whole responding conversation to people, don't you? And you feel like, I don't know what the word is. I guess you have that need to kind of just answer. A good friend of mine, he checks his emails at 10 and 4, and that's the only time he responds every day.
That's brilliant, though, isn't it? I know exactly what you mean, though, Gareth, is that I almost feel rude if I don't, especially if I can do it quickly.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you've got 10 emails that you can do quickly, that could be 2 hours out your day that you just spend doing quick things.
But you sometimes find, and I don't know whether you all find this, but like I might be writing a report or something, an email will flash up, and I'm like, I need to reply to that. Yeah. But I don't. And I think it is a big thing, and it's something that I need to adopt more, is to shut them down, especially when I'm working on something. I've been trying to do a bit of journaling recently, a bit more, and that does try and get me into the habit of doing things in sections. And if I'm working on that is all I'm working on.
Yeah.
If the phone rings, don't answer it. They'll leave a message. The house isn't on fire. It's nothing kind of urgent. And you can always kind of return that call.
I think it's about reminding ourselves about that as well. Like, just because a message has come through doesn't mean I have to immediately respond. We feel like we do because we feel like it's rude, especially with Facebook, because it comes up like it's red.
Oh,
I hate that. I hate it when somebody sends a big long message and I clicked on it and I haven't responded to them. It's actually okay. You can respond at your own time. It's really important because we've got lives to live outside of our phones and computers.
Yeah, they're all like that, though, aren't they? WhatsApp's like it. People, you can have read receipts on your text messages. But the only problem is that I think that has a negative effect on people's mental health sometimes, because people do get quite obsessed by the fact that you haven't replied.
Absolutely.
I've experienced that in the past, but not myself, but that kind of, they've read it.
But some people can't chat. So that's like thought challenging, isn't it? You're challenging that thought. And I've had it where I've sent a message to somebody and they've read it. And then I'll be like, why haven't they responded? That's why I want to respond quickly to people being in that position. But it's actually about anything to do with like negative thinking like that, because that's not true. I don't know that they're ignoring me. It's challenging that thought. If you feel that way, it's about saying, well, do I actually know that they're ignoring me, or are they busy? Perhaps they're doing something else. Perhaps they don't have time. Perhaps they don't have like the mental capacity. They're just feeling a bit tired. And I wouldn't get the most out of them if they did reply now, It's about challenging those thoughts. But you're right, it can. That's why I want to reply quickly, because I wouldn't want anybody thinking that I was ignoring them.
Yeah.
But the knock-on effect is then that fatigue. It's almost like Zoom fatigue, isn't it? It's like instant messenger fatigue, where you feel like you need to respond to everybody as soon as you get a message.
If you have Zoom and you have LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, text message, emails, there's a lot of social media and technology there. And because everything is available in a small phone and we're in lockdown, if you don't reply immediately, people are going, what else are you doing? It's on your phone. So, sometimes, as you said, when there is a need to get the phone, close it down and leave it there. If you're going out for that walk and listening to the birds, distance yourself from it all at the moment. But that's going to be difficult, I presume, at the moment. We're talking about utopia because everyone knows most people are at home and most people are subconsciously just picking up the phone every now and again like that, looking at it because it's just next to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I'll give myself as an example. Like my mum will message me. She'll know that if I'm working, I am in. I am in the zone. I'm not answering my my WhatsApps or my Facebooks unless it's like a work thing. So people still have other things that they're doing now. Like you said, yeah, we're all in lockdown. Like it's not like we're going to the pubs or anything like that, but we're still busy. We're still doing, even if we're not working, it could be that we're doing that bulk cook so that we feel good. It could be that we're taking our hour exercise. It could be that we've taken an hour to do some meditation or do some tidying. It's we are still busy. We are still productive. And I think it's important that we allow people a bit of space to respond to us.
We've gone off track a bit. What number are we at? Are we number 4 or 5? Right, 4. Tip number 4 are...
Workspace, I suppose. It's a difficult one because some people don't have an extra space in which they can work if you are working currently. I was lucky I had a spare room. It was actually the cat's room because there was a big double bed in here and they just stayed in here. So very quickly, as soon as we realised that I would be spending a lot of time at home, we dismantled the bed, put it in the garage, and I got my desk, I moved it, I set up here. I get up in the morning, I do my ablutions or whatever, have my cup of tea, and then I come in here. This is my workspace. At 5 o'clock, I clock off and I go downstairs to another space that's outside of this. It's really important that you separate your workspace from your leisure space still, because it muddies it. Yeah. If you're working where your leisure time is, you're going to get really bored all day. So even if you've got like a small space, or maybe you just got like a 1-bedroom place, set yourself an area where you can work, even if it's just like a small table or somewhere else in the house that isn't where you relax. So somewhere outside of where you relax is really, really important, because psychologically then you attach that area with work, this area with relaxation. So it's really important that you separate those two things.
Myself and Shane are quite lucky. We both got home offices, so I've actually got a dedicated office. So is Shane, which he shares with his wife when they're kind of home working. But a lot of people don't have that, do they? And you're right. I think it's easy to fall into that. I'll take my laptop into the bedroom, or I'll have my laptop in the living room while I'm watching a bit of TV. And it is, moving into your social chill out space. Yeah,
it's horrible. I did it a few weeks ago. I did my knee in trying to run because I took exercise because Paris. Yeah, so I thought, for today I'll just sit downstairs. I'll take my laptop and I'll sit downstairs. And then at the end of the day, I was sitting in the same space and I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be anywhere near where I just sat for 8 hours, doing intense focused work or answering emails. And then I'm just sitting there trying to watch the TV. It feels horrible. Even if I was sat on the different sofa, it might have made a bit of a difference, in terms of psychologically, okay, somewhere else. This is a different area.
I think that's it. Whether like some people don't have the luxuries of home offices or rooms they can use. So, like you say, I think it's getting that, whether it's that dedicated place on the dining room table or place in the kitchen.
Yeah, it is really important. Like you said, you don't need a separate room. I'm really lucky. You guys are really lucky. Just as long as it's a different space. Sorry, we're talking about emails. There they go.
There they go.
I'm trying not to look at them. It is really, really important. And it is something that can be done. You could just move to a different area of the room, and psychologically that is very different. It's a very different workspace for you, and then different relaxation space as well.
And number 5, I guess, the last one.
Number 5, I suppose, because we're talking about this as if everybody's in work. But There are some people who are out of work at the moment, whether they are self-employed or they've lost their jobs or they've been furloughed. My other half is a musician. There's no gigs at the moment. So, he's feeling it. He's stuck in.
Yeah.
You still need to look at those plans. Remember, like we were talking about earlier, Shane, setting yourself a plan for the week. That can still be done. Even if you're furloughed, you're out of work, whatever. Set yourself goals throughout the week or throughout the day. Plan your next day so that you have something to do, so that you still have a sense of achievement. Some days that might just be getting out of bed, especially if you're really feeling it at the moment. You're feeling anxious or you're suffering with your mental health. Set yourself small goals. Today I will get out of bed, even if it's just for 2 hours. Today I'll make myself a healthy meal. Sometimes even today I'm going to brush my teeth or shower. Small goals. If you want to look bigger, you can kind of say, okay, so I'm being furloughed. I know I'm being furloughed for a few months. I'm going to start a sign language course. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm going to learn how to crochet, or, I'm going to take up an instrument. There's so many things that we can do. There's actually, I suppose there's two ends of the spectrum that's happening at the moment, even in my house. So I'm flat out at work because I'm one of the unfurloughed ones. So I'm taking on the load of other people. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are people with nothing to do that they've been given to do. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that we can't do anything. Even if you have nothing to do, there are things that you can do. You can still be productive. You can be cleaning. You can be planning. You can take up a hobby. You can learn something new. So that would be my fifth tip is, stay busy, get yourself a routine and set yourself goals, set yourself goals to do throughout a day or throughout a week, whatever, because you get that sense of achievement then. You still get that sense that I'm doing something, I'm giving something back, even if it's just in your house, It
is so easy just to fall into the trap of, I'll go to bed at 3 a.m, so I'm going to watch a film, and I get up at 12 o'clock, and then that becomes 1 o'clock. And, it is good to try and keep a routine. If you can keep a routine, which is the normality of what you'll be doing as working, that's great, and if there is something you really want to learn, kind of do it. Like the stuff that me and Shane have discussed, the stuff we're learning at the moment, we're doing other things on the side of what we're doing, albeit we are busy with work, but we're working on the business and we're working on ourselves as well. Yeah. Even just down to these podcasts, this is number 8 now, and we got a lot more lined up, and we plan to do one a week consistently for, forever, I guess. Yeah. And we may increase that to 2 a week. We may do some short ones of just myself and Shane discussing some key topics, which kind of come up. But yeah, I think trying to have a routine, and I know not everyone is driven to want to learn something new, but I think, like you say, if it is just that thing, just get out of bed for a couple of hours, or maybe just go for a walk. You don't
even have to learn something, just set yourself goals every day.
Yeah, and like you talk about the action, like we talk micro actions, and that's effectively what you say, little micro actions.
Yeah, the big thing, which I'm surprised, and maybe it's just a separate thing, is the exercise endorphins. Because, it comes up in every podcast, so we might as well say it. Gareth usually starts off going, what week are we into now? And then, someone says week 3, week 5, and Shane, what are you into? And I add another 2 weeks, because I tore my Achilles just prior to it. So it meant I can't do any exercise whatsoever. And I love this gym every morning, 7:30 and stuff like that. And to me, that allows me to kick on for the day. So by, like a dynamo, generating exercise in the morning, or doing exercise to generate some level of endorphins that keeps me going for the day has been superb. For the last 8 or 9 weeks, trying to get a cup of tea and move it while I'm on crutches and weight bearing has really affected me. So as well as being locked down, I haven't been able to do normal things. So, walk around and stuff. So that, to me, as well as the 5 things, is a major, major point for me, and now I'm out of my boot. After this now, I'm going for a walk. It's only 800 meters a kilometer. It'll take me half an hour, but it's just that exercise to get fresh air, to get out, to get the endorphins going, to clear the mind. It's a major, major thing for me anyways, personally.
Yeah, and so many people have taken it up as well, that previously, because they didn't have time.
Yeah.
People didn't feel like they had time. All of a sudden, we're being told we've got an hour to exercise, and psychologically people are going, okay, well, I'm going to make the most of that now. And it's really good because, as you said, the positive effects that has on the mind, on mood, on sleep, on so many things, the positive effects that exercise has is fantastic. If it's a habit that people can do, providing that they've checked with their doctor first that they're all right to do it and to go ahead and start exercise is absolutely brilliant.
It's funny because one of the previous podcasts with James Haskell, as much he's a massive advocate of mental health and stuff like that, but he was kind of saying, the amount of people that didn't exercise ever before in their lives, and now they're in lockdown, they're going, right, I'm going to run a marathon next week. And he's like, look, just do, as we say, the micro actions, right? If it's going to take you 100 days, if you make 1% gain every day, in 100 days, you got that 100%. But it's like everyone wanted to go, what does he say? I want to run a marathon, I want to climb Kilimanjaro, and all of these things that people are going to do while in lockdown. Yeah. Just make sure your mental health is okay, right? And make sure that you can do whatever job you're doing, stay active, stay fit, healthy, stay happy, and then add in the exercise on top of that. But don't start, setting yourselves goals that are totally unachievable.
That's exactly what I did when I did my knee in 2 weeks ago. I went from not running to trying to do 3K, which is a lot for me in about 4 days.
Touching on what Shane said, that James Haskell touched on something like he's been a massive advocate of sports psychology. And I thought it was quite a big thing in sport. He said, no, you'd be surprised how many people don't believe in it. And he said the transference from sport to daily life has been massive for him. His ability to be able to cope with certain things in his career, and he played sport at the highest level.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you think about sport psychology in terms of anxiety. I think anxiety is a bad thing, but we need it.
Yeah.
If I didn't have a little bit of anxiety, I wouldn't have set an alarm to get up this morning to do my work. I wouldn't have set reminders to come and do this. So I wouldn't be functioning particularly well. I know that there's been a lot of research done into sports psychology, and it's a very, very deep field of information. But there used to be the school of thought that they calm athletes down before competitions, okay, well, chill out a little bit. And now they realise that actually they do need that little bit of anxiety, but it gets to a point. It gets to a point where anxiety actually helps performance. And then there's a point where that anxiety is actually hindering performance. So it's finding a good level of anxiety to pump us a little bit to get the adrenaline going.
But everyone will admit that, won't they? No matter what they're doing, whether it be a sporting environment or someone on stage, that, somebody that's about to go out in front of 80,000 people has done it 120 times, or somebody's going to stand on a stage and present to somebody, they all admit that they feel anxious at the start. It never changes. They still get nervous, and that helps them get through it. You have to take it as a positive way of looking at things.
I think I kind of take nerves sometimes as a positive thing, in the fact that it means you care sometimes as well.
Well, exactly. If you weren't nervous, you wouldn't care. So no. you wouldn't have it. I think because we're talking about anxiety there, and I think it's really good that we're talking about it in a positive way, because everybody kind of wants to pathologize mental health terms at the moment. So when somebody's feeling a bit down, you can't pathologize that and say that that's a mental illness. If somebody's feeling a bit anxious, it's really important we don't pathologize that and say that that's a mental illness. It is a natural reaction. It can become a mental illness when it's ongoing and when it's affecting somebody's functioning and their ability to do things. But we can't pathologize every low mood or every reaction. There are some things that are natural reactions. Mental illness is something completely different. So I'm quite glad that we spoke about anxiety in a positive light, because we do need it.
You're talking about that, Gwen. Is there signs that we could look out for then, if we feel that somebody is suffering from some mental illness at this time? There's
many signs. It depends on what the person is suffering. The biggest one would be a change in the person, obviously. Look at how the behaviours have changed. Have there been any habit changes? Are they withdrawing? It's difficult at the moment because we're all kind of withdrawn, but that's the importance of actually touching base with people as well. So maintaining that connection there. We're humans. We need connection. If we don't connect with each other, we'll try and find other avenues of connection, which are sometimes not so good. Sometimes things like alcohol or drugs, So it's really important that we do have those connections there. If somebody was struggling, it could be hard to notice at the moment. I suppose the biggest one would be kind of withdrawing from, answering messages or stuff like that. Big changes in personality, or if they're not, perhaps. It's even difficult because usually you say how they look after themselves, how they present themselves. But at the moment, I'm wearing a pair of pajama bottoms at the moment because we're all in this odd situation. But you can look out for significant changes in behaviour. I think the most important thing at the moment for us to do as humans is just ask people, are you doing okay? And when they go, yeah, I'm okay, ask again. No, seriously, are you doing okay? Because it is going to be so easy under these circumstances to mask symptoms, how we're feeling. There could be a pressure there to feel like we have to keep going and that everybody's in the same boat. So why am I struggling? So people could mask a lot of these things. It's harder to see when we're not in person, but certainly changes in people.
Yeah, it was one of the points I was going to bring up later on. My wife is a big advocate of saying, how are you? And most people go, how are you? And go, fine. Okay, good. But she actively makes a point to go, no, really, how are you? And does get people to talk. And the one point that she's brought through, and we try and bring it the whole way, even chatting to friends and that, is it's okay to not be okay. It's absolutely normal to not feel absolutely fine all the time, and talk about it.
Definitely. And in terms of asking in different ways as well. So if you get the sense that maybe somebody's having a bit of a bad day or they're not feeling so well, and you say, how are you doing? And they say, okay, perhaps say, okay, so how was your day today? Because you're asking for specifics. How is your mood? How are you feeling? Ask them again, but ask them in a different way to try and, get to the crux of, it might be absolutely nothing, but, there could be a concern there. They could have had a bad day and they just don't want to burden anybody with it. But just letting them know that it's all right for you to speak to them and phrasing the questions differently can be really useful.
Is there help out there for people then? If people feel that they need help, who can they reach out to, or what sort of help can they get now during these times?
Exactly the same help as they were having before. GPs are still working. If you need to speak to your GP, you call them up and you say, I am struggling with my mental health. There seems to be coronavirus guilt going on at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
So people don't want to phone the doctors if they're not feeling well. I didn't want to do it when I did my knee in, but I realised that I had to. People don't want to burden the NHS any more than they do. But I mean, if we're not intervening early and looking after, you've got a bit of self-responsibility there as well. So we need to be taking the onus to be accessing help. If we're not feeling tip-top now and we're saying, look, I don't want to be a burden on the NHS, 6 months down the line, that could be far, far worse. We could be in a far, far worse place. I cannot emphasise how important it is if people are feeling a little bit under the weather, or if their anxiety is playing up, or if they're feeling depressed, go to your GP, speak to your GP, because they will phone you. They're doing phone appointments and some are doing video appointments. It's really, really important. If that feels a little bit too intimidating, you can contact the Samaritans for some sympathetic listening, just to have a chat to somebody. Sometimes we don't, like you were saying, we don't want to burden our friends, but it's really nice just to, get things off your chest and speak to somebody else. If you're looking for services that there are in your area, might be a little bit difficult at the moment because, of course, everything's changed in the past sort of 2 months. Call 24 helpline is really good at looking at what things people have in their local area that they can access, and they're pretty up on keeping it up to date as well. But of course, some of these services at the moment might be difficult to access, or they might have changed the way that you access them. So it's worth checking that.
I think the big thing is, I think a lot of people are scared to kind of burden their friends with it, but I'd rather someone pick the phone up to me than didn't, and just to have a chat. We're all here to listen, aren't we?
Yeah. I suppose the biggest worry is, from our perspective, from a mental health perspective, we are concerned about the isolation that people are dealing with and the potential of the increase in suicide rates.
Yeah.
So as you were saying then, Gareth, rightly so, I would rather somebody burden, inverted commas, me with how they're feeling than to not say anything and end up taking their lives. And it is really important when we're talking about, Shane, you were saying about the importance of asking twice. If we are concerned that somebody is feeling suicidal, it is important to ask the question, which might feel a bit weird for some people, but it is absolutely essential that part of that conversation becomes, have you been having thoughts of suicide? Because you need to figure that out. You need to gauge that.
One of the biggest things I've kind of thought about over the last few weeks is there's so many people out there who probably live in a 1-bedroom apartment. They're a single person. They've been furloughed by their employer, I just hope that the employers are doing things for them. You probably, I guess, with your training, I guess you see a lot of employers do, but I bet there's a lot of employers out there who don't do anything.
I think, again, it's coming back to that connection that we were talking about. And employers absolutely, they still have a duty to those who are furloughed because they're still employed. So they absolutely still should be checking on their well-being and on their wellness. But I think, again, it comes back to us as well. So if you know that there's somebody in that situation, drop them a message, see how they're doing, ask them how they're feeling. Even if you haven't spoken to them for years, like I'm pretty good at not feeling awkward about messaging people and just saying, how are you feeling? Don't feel awkward about it because you might be the only person to message that person, It's really important that we reach out at this point in time to people who are more vulnerable.
So my view is you have to listen twice as much as talking. And that's a really hard thing to do because everyone just wants to talk all the time. I'm the most guilty of it. And the guys will admit that. But sometimes you learn more by shutting up and just listening and stop talking.
People are also worried about the awkward silence. So we feel like we need to fill them. I love an awkward silence. I think, what's his name? Louis Theroux. Have you ever seen his documentaries? He's like a master of the awkward silence. He will let it hang for time. It's brilliant. But when you're talking to people, sometimes those silences are not awkward for them. You need to ask yourself the question, is this awkward for me or is it awkward for them? Because they might actually be taking the time to process what you're asking them, to process how they think, how they're feeling, what kind of thoughts they're having. So it's really important. Silent and listen have the same letters. It could be for a reason.
What are the issues that you guys are seeing as an organisation that people should be aware of? And I'm going to throw in there, it's going to be a bit harsh and political. Are the government doing enough?
What is enough would be my answer to that. I don't know what enough looks like. I can't speak of the response because we're in the situation that we're in, so we have to accept it. Yeah, I think I kind of don't want to go into politics too much because it's not my job, but are they doing enough for mental health at the moment? No. But they kind of have other things that they need to focus on. So we as a community need to pick up the slack there a little bit, I think, for now. I do think there will be an epidemic coming up shortly, especially if we see job losses and stuff like that. That's the type of thing that we're anticipating and that we're thinking about because we know we run courses as an organisation on debt and suicide. There's a very, very high correlation between people who are in debt and suicide rates, and that's a concern. So I'm hoping that there is going to be some information and support for people in terms of people who have had to go into debt because of their situation at the moment, and I just hope that there's going to be some support after all of this to get them through that, because it can have a massive impact on people's mental health. And like I said, we're anticipating that there may be issues off the back of this in terms of redundancies, social isolation, all of the issues that we've spoken about throughout this session today.
People need to get back to the community village feel, look out for each other, not just knock on doors of the elderly, but when you see somebody on the street, say hello, give them a smile. If there's somebody you haven't spoken to on your phone for days, weeks, months, and you're feeling a bit off that you haven't done it, just pick up the phone, drop them a text message, a WhatsApp message, give them a call, ask them how they are, catch up with them in the future, just reach out to people going forward, because many, many people will need that social distance hug or whatever it may be, because everyone or a lot of people will be suffering but won't be willing to admit it.
It's so important, as you said, just to reach out and not feel awkward about it. Sometimes we feel awkward if we haven't spoken to somebody for a while. Just do it. Just get it done. How you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. You're not. It's very rare you're going to get a negative response from that, is it? That's exactly it. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, doing wrong. I tell you one thing we'll touch on before we finish. The new campaign, Sporting Wales Together.
Yeah, thank you for bringing me back to that. So, as we said. We are concerned as an organisation that it is difficult to access support. So, like I said earlier, you can go to your GP, you can speak to your GP, but in terms of therapies and stuff like that, unless people are going private at the moment, it can be quite difficult to access therapies, counselling, and definitely training. So we've launched the hashtag Supporting Wales Together campaign. We've even got a charity single. My other half's band, The Shut-Ins, they've done a version of Faith for us. So all of the funds for any downloads to that is going towards the campaign. The money from that campaign, as I said, will go towards counselling session, especially for key workers. You know, it must be so tough for them at the moment if they're isolated from their families, they're working flat out, they're seeing a lot of things that must be really upsetting. So we're especially focusing on the key members and the more vulnerable members of our society. People like we've spoken about during this podcast, people who are in isolation or who are feeling particularly down due to the lockdown. Also training, because you'd be surprised, we touched on this, there are a couple of bad managers out there in the world, you know. Perhaps some managers or some workers could do with some mental health training to notice the signs and support the person who they are managing or who they work with or with whom they're friends, you know. So we wanted to fund training spaces for people who needed it. It's, again, especially people who are perhaps in managerial roles for key workers, so that they can spot issues, they know how to support, they know what to do in the event of somebody, you know, becoming quite unwell.
Is that song out already?
The song is out already. It's on iTunes, it's on Spotify. If you go on the MHFA Wales Facebook page, it's pinned at the top. It's Faith by The Shut-Ins, so it's a cover of George Michael.
I've listened to it. You sent me the link before. It's great. We'll there's just giving page for that as well in this, so we'll link to that in our show notes. Thanks for that, Gwen.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time today. It's been really, really helpful, and hopefully, if there's anyone feeling down or anything, and they pick up a podcast and they listen to it, if it helps one person reach out to somebody, to know what, it's been a very well worthwhile hour spent chatting.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. That was a great chat with Gwen. So what have we learned today? Some key takeaways from this episode as usual. Be kind. Pick up the phone and reach out to people, especially anyone you know who is alone or may just need to talk during this time. Sometimes you need to ask twice if somebody is okay, not always accept their first answer. Again, there's lots of takeaways from this episode today. Head over to our website, www.sanfp.co.uk, or check our YouTube channel, search Sanctuary Financial Planning in YouTube for more information and insights. We will also link to their new campaign, hashtag Supporting Wales Together, that they have set up and have released a charity single to go along with it. Well, that's it for this episode. Next, we're talking all things marketing with Laura Janes. You can hear that wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, don't forget to click subscribe and get all the latest episodes as soon as they arrive. Until next time, thanks for listening.